So here I am in the Visual Studio. I'm about to construct the interface for our future value of an investment application. And I can go to New Project here, or I can go to File, New, and select Project. I'm going to double check and make sure I'm in the C# category, which I am. I am going to save my application on the desktop, and I think I'll just call it FV. That's not the greatest name, but we'll just go with it for the sake of brevity. So let's just go ahead and click OK. And now I've got a form to work with. I'll stretch it out a little bit. And I'll go ahead and start by changing the text on the form to something descriptive so my user knows what this is all about. So we'll say future value of an investment. Okay. And now I'll just dive in and start constructing the interface. We'll start with a label here, and here we're going to tell the user to enter the principal amount or the initial amount in US dollars. Did you notice when I drew that label, I drew it kind of wider and then it snapped back really small? That's because there's this auto size property for the label, and by default it's set to true. So if you want more control over the size of your labels, change that to false. So I just changed that to false. You can see the original size that I drew is back, and I have the ability to size it with the mouse. Okay? Otherwise, the label will shrink and grow to fit the contents of the text that you put in there. So I'm going to change the text property of this label, and we'll say enter initial investment amount. And I'll tell the user to make sure it's in US dollars. Okay? And then, maybe I'll tighten that up a little bit, and then I'll add a text box to the right of it so that the user can actually type in that amount. Now, I'm going to change the name of this text box. This is going to be the initial amount or the principal amount. So why don't we call it TXT INIT AMT, initial amount. Be careful with abbreviations. Make sure they're descriptive. Don't use something that's so short that somebody would look at it and not know what it means. But I think that's a pretty self-explanatory abbreviation there, especially the AMT. That's a very common abbreviation for amount. So why did I change the name of this control, the text box, and not this one? No, I changed the text of this one, but the name is still just label 1, which is not a good control name. The reason is this, the text box, is what we call an essential control, while the label is a non-essential control. What does that mean? That means that when we go back behind the scenes in our next video and we are writing code, we are going to be referring to this text box in our code. This label is not going to appear in our code. Its only purpose is to tell the user what to type into the text box, and we don't need to refer to this in our code at all. So that's what we mean by non-essential. So you don't have to waste time naming non-essential controls, only the essential ones, and that's what we'll do here. So here is the first part where they're entering the initial amount of the investment. Now we're going to have them enter the initial rate of return, or not the initial, the expected rate of return. Okay, and I'll also include an example, like if it's 8% or how about 6.25%, that's what the user can enter. Okay, again, this is a non-essential control. I'll add a text box to a right of it where the user will actually type in the rate of return or the expected rate of return, and this will be an essential control. So we are going to rename this TXT rate. Okay, and then one more here. This will be the number of years invested. Again, non-essential control, so we'll skip the name, but we do have to say in the text, enter number of years invested. Okay, and then a text box. Essential control. So we'll call that TXT years. Okay, and then what's going to happen? We are going to have some sort of calculate button down here like we saw in the demo, and also the answer is going to be displayed to the user. So right now, let's add a label. And you know what, first I'm going to change this auto size to false. And this label, we want it to be invisible when the application first starts running, because we have nothing to say to the user. They haven't entered the values yet. But once they calculate and we have an answer for them, the initial value, then we will put that answer in this label. So it'll start out blank, so I'm going to remove the text. Also, this label, unlike our other labels, is an essential control. So I want to give it a good name, and I'll use the LBL prefix on a label. And why don't we call it result? Okay, and now we have a button, the calculate button, that I'll put down here. We'll call this BTN calc, and I'll change the text to calculate. Okay, and then one more thing, we have a picture of a piggy bank. I'll add a picture box over here. Okay, and basically, and this is a non-essential control, it's just there for show really, but you can change the image property here using this button and then, you know, browsing for the image, or you can use this little arrow and do a choose image, import, and then I have that picture on the desktop right there. Click OK. Okay. The size mode here is normal. If you want the image to shrink and grow with your picture box, you can change the size mode to stretch image. Okay? So in the next video, we'll go behind the scenes and we'll code the calculation.